Are we really free? This is one of the most classic philosophical questions, one that will continually trouble both academic philosophers and stoned college students. It has implications over moral responsibility, the nature of causality, and the notion of what subjectivity really is. What does it mean to will something? Friedrich Nietzsche illustrates the strangeness of this situation in his exploration of free will. To will something is to imply command over something that is thought to obey us, our will. Freedom of will, he explains further, is a function of willing something in oneself that will obey our command. From this, some sort of action is executed. Once acted out, the commander of the will, the subject, rejoices in the execution of the task. And so commander and executioner become one. This could be likened to the self as process. We are both the initiator and initiated. But are we? This video will briefly go over some different views of what free will really is. Firstly, there is determinism, the argument that all events are completely predetermined. This means we have absolutely no say in what we choose to do, including when you decided to watch this video. According to determinism, the laws of nature and the initial conditions of the universe determine the course of events in a predictable and deterministic manner. In the context of free will, determinism can make things pretty confusing. Are we responsible for our actions? Is a murderer destined to be a murderer and thus not to be held accountable for their actions? There's varying levels of determinism. Hard determinism asserts that determinism is entirely incompatible with the idea of free will, and argues that if all events are determined by prior causes, then human actions cannot be genuinely free. This does mean, if we follow the logic of the hard determinist, that moral responsibility and personal accountability are illusory concepts in a deterministic universe, as individuals have no genuine control over their actions. Soft determinism, while still advocating for the idea that we are still somewhat unfree, nonetheless asserts that it is a mix of environmental constraints and biological makeup, but only to a certain extent. We'll get back to this in a moment. Libertarianism is the philosophical position that asserts the existence of genuine free will and moral responsibility. The libertarian fundamentally rejects the idea that our actions are causally determined by external factors and believes instead that free will allows us to make genuine and authentic choices that are unpredictable and actually free from the laws of nature. According to libertarians, individuals possess the ability to initiate new causal chains and make decisions that are not entirely determined by previous causal factors. This is a pretty nice and freeing idea. Many existentialists, for example, advocate for this level of liberty at the individual level and encourage people to embrace their freedom at every turn. However, such advocacy can be seen as somewhat deficient logically, as it fails to account for how we are ruled by the natural laws of the universe, such as our neurology, physics, and chemistry. And then we have compatibilism, which we've briefly already addressed under the term soft determinism, which is the philosophical position that seeks to unite the claims of determinism with the possibility of free will. Perhaps this was born out of the fear that if determinism is real, then there is no real moral accountability. Whatever the case, compatibilists argue that free will is still compatible with determinism, hence the name, provided that individuals are able to act in accordance with their desires, intentions, and rational capacities, without any external coercion or constraint. Compatibilism then advocates for a version of free will that sees the individual as reasonably free. In the absence of constraints, we have more choices available than before. According to compatibilism, freedom is not incompatible with causation, but rather consists in the absence of external constraints that might prevent individuals from acting in accordance with their desires and values. Many psychologists believe in this view on free will, seeing the individual as still technically free if they are no longer weighed down by oppressive factors. Evidence for this is seen in the relative psychological health of individuals when they view themselves as acting autonomously. Compatibilists emphasize the importance of distinguishing between external constraints, such as coercion or manipulation, and those more blurry internal factors, such as desires and beliefs, that shape human actions. However, the question of whether we can desire the wrong things and if there is an essential, authentic self does throw compatibilism into question. The following theories of free will can provide us with a useful framework in determining moral agency, psychological health, and how to predict behavior. Perhaps right now our scientific tools simply are not accurate enough in predicting what people will do, and so a future like the Minority Report, where we can predict and prosecute criminals before they commit crimes, is thankfully still out of reach. Or maybe human choices are in fact entirely free and thus could never be accurately predicted. Whatever the case, I find the words of Jean-Paul Sartre especially relevant in discussing freedom. Freedom is what you do with what has been done to you. This video is sponsored by Brilliant. Hey everyone, let's talk about a subject that's often misunderstood but incredibly important: statistics. And if you're like me, you might have struggled with it in the past, but fear not, because I found something that's been a game changer: Brilliant. Brilliant isn't just your run-of-the-mill online learning tool. It's a powerhouse that helps you grasp complex concepts like statistics with ease. But here's why Brilliant stands out. It doesn't just teach you statistics, it helps you truly understand it. And in today's data-driven world, that understanding is invaluable. With Brilliant's course on exploring data, you can build a solid foundation in data analysis as you learn to visualize and work with real data sets. No coding skills required. Learn to choose the right visualization so you can understand and communicate data effectively, and learn to filter, group, and manipulate datasets in order to turn raw data into insights you can use to make decisions. To try everything Brilliant has to offer for free for a full 30 days, head on over to brilliant.org/Sisyphus55 or click on the link in the description. You'll also get 20% off an annual premium subscription.